Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to try to fix the twitchiness steering of my DFXL velomobile, and I went ahead and contacted Inner City Bike and got some extension plates. So I'll go ahead and take an overview of this and try to install them. Inner City Bike's website has directions, and I'm going to go ahead and just briefly show you these directions, so go ahead and feel free to pause it if you want to see any of it. It starts off saying that the DF steer is light and direct, which is, for me, a little bit twitchy stock. You're going to have to purchase those extension plates, and also you may have to drill a hole. It says if you make this modification, your bike will steer straight ahead much more easily. There's another way also to drill another hole using one of these extra ball heads. However, I'm not going to be drilling another hole. For those that do want to drill a hole, you need another washer and bolt possibly, or you can reuse the old mounting parts. This is considered a tow bar, and it should be about 6 centimeters from the ball head on the steering plate. It also says that you must mill the hole or center tie rod 3 millimeters further outward, and that is referring to this section right here. I don't have that machinery, so I won't be doing that either. So I won't be using a router table, and I won't be using a drill to drill another hole in the shell of the velomobile. Okay, so here's a look what's inside the package. You get the extension plates and some screws. Alright, here's a closer look at them. As you can tell, both of these adapter plates, or extension plates I should say, are almost identical. They fit right on top of each other, and these, I should have said bolts, are here to attach it to the steering plate. Not that this will make much of a difference anyway. I'll just go ahead and stick them on the scale. It's going to add just the tiniest bit of weight to the velomobile, and it comes out to 39.2 grams of extra weight. My guess is, looking top down, this will be on the right side for the right steering plate for the right wheel, and this will be for the left wheel. And there's already a normal hole right here in the steering plate, and it's going to adapt to make it further out. Okay, so the extension here should be right about 25 millimeters. So that's like from center to center, even from like the right end to right end is 25 millimeters, and that's the extension portion. So on the steering plate, you're going to have to drill another hole adjacent to this on the steering plate. And it's the hole on the right here, the bottom right. And it looks like it's about maybe 10 millimeters. Yeah, maybe exactly 1 centimeter. And there's about 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter from center to center apart from the adjacent hole. So the width of this hole, it's not an M6 or 6 millimeters. It's a little smaller. So I'm going to guess, kind of looking at this, looks like about 3.75. Let me put this in here. Maybe 4. Depending where, maybe 4.5 millimeters on that. Here's one of the screws or the bolts that fits in. It doesn't go in easily. You have to actually kind of screw it in for it to get through. Let me go see if I could measure the width here. And that comes out again about 4.4 millimeters across. The larger one, this might be the M6. 5.75 millimeters across. So eventually you're going to have this thing kind of attached on here as the extension. So normally how it is currently is it's connected to the steering plate, which is down here. Then you're going to extend it out to this area. And this one across is 5.5 millimeters. Oh, 5 millimeters. There we go. Alright, just for the purpose of beforehand, see, we're just about -1 or 2 degrees. The bike kind of goes from about 15 degrees one direction to about 15, 16 degrees. So about 15 degrees each direction. Yeah, if you look at the lower. So I'll just say 15 one direction, 15 the other direction. Now this is before any mods. Okay, and to remove the front wheel, all you need is a 5mm Allen key and just loosen that bolt, and then the wheel should come right off. So again, we got the 5mm here. Just put it on in and go ahead and loosen it. And then you can just pull on up as long as the parking brake is released. And it should just come right on out, just like so. And in case you're curious, there's just a brief look of the inside. It does come with a stock wheel magnet connected to the CAD computer, and these are the 90mm drum brakes. And this is a carbon disc cover. Okay, so the extension I mentioned would be to extend this part a little further outward by 2.5 centimeters or 25mm, and you want to keep these other parts similar. And here's kind of what it looks like when it rotates the 15 degrees. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit so you can see that the steering column does move a little bit too, and that's why there's kind of a gap here for the steering column to move. Here's another look underneath. I should just go out and let me get my tape measure so I could just kind of measure these points for you. So you are looking at the left side of the velomobile, and if you want to go in centimeters, I'll try to put this right into the center. It looks like from this left side to the middle one comes into about, let's say, 73mm, and then to the far one, let's say 177mm to this one here from center to center. So again, it looks like about 72, 73 to this one, and then maybe 175. Yeah, I'll go with 175 millimeters. So if you take a look at the bottom here, the left side is the front of the velomobile. So I'm going to have to take the steering plate out and drill a little hole here to the left where my finger is pointing. And then you could put the extension out. And then what you're going to have to do is modify this left side here and then screw it further in. So this connection actually comes to the left another 2.5 centimeters or 25mm. So here's another close look at the steering plate from the bottom of the velomobile. And here's a look at from underneath to the side. And you have to, I guess, remove those bolts as well to take the steering column out, or the steering plate, not the column, the plate. So it appears this bolt here holds the brake and attaches to the steering column and the steering plate. And this bolt looks like it just attaches to the steering column right there. And here's just a brief look at the 90mm drum brake. So the next step will be to remove the steering plate. Here's a look from top down still of the left side of the velomobile, and it looks like the adapter plate, I'm going to have to drill a hole closer to the body of the velomobile, and then it'll stick out the 25mm right here. Alright, so those middle two Allen head screws are for 4mm, and then these bolts here on top of the steering plate are 10mm hex wrench, as you can see right there. Okay, the first issue I came into was that the 4mm Allen bolts are real tight, and I just kind of had to keep putting pressure on it, and it finally started loosening up. And also note on the left side here, there's a little washer because here it's connected to the brakes. And so you have this washer here for a spacer. And then the next problem I had was when I was trying to remove these 10mm. As you can see, it'll just keep spinning, so I had to get some needle nose pliers to hold on to it. I'll show you for this one or this one what I had to do. So as you can see, here's the second from the front one. Actually, I'll use this one. If you keep turning it, this portion on the bottom, I'm not sure if you could see it, but it'll spin also. So I had to use these needle nose pliers and hold on to that bottom section over here, and then after I gripped it, then I could go ahead and start loosening up this top bolt with a 10mm hex head. Okay, so I removed the steering plate, and this is the steering plate here, and then on a piece of tape I wrote F for front so I know which way or where to drill the hole, and that'll be on this left side over here. Also, here's a look at the bolts and washers that were removed in the process to get this far. Okay, here's a top-down look at the extension adapter, and if I put it on top, you'll notice that it won't line up on the holes, so it looks like this extension will have to go underneath. And when you turn it around, this is kind of how you're going to line up the holes. And you have to make sure that you know exactly where to put this, because if you drill it off, it's going to definitely affect the location of the extension there. Okay, so here's another look at the steering column. Sorry, another look at the steering plate. Put the screw in real loosely, and as you can see, depending on where you want to drill the other hole, you have to make sure that this extension is directly in line with this. So you might have to just kind of eye it, and then on the back mark where the hole is, and then that's the hole you're going to have to drill into the steering plate. Alright, so I did the best I can just by looking at it, and then I went ahead and used the pencil and marked the hole right there. Okay, so there's a look at the hole, and then if you want to see how far it is to make sure you did a good job, you could always use your digital calipers and look from center to center, and it looks to be right at 1 centimeter or 10mm, so that looks perfect. So I lined up this small one here, and it comes out to be this number 10. So if you look closely, it looks like it lines up perfectly. And I flip it over, it lines up right here in this number 10. And the number 10, if you can see, it says 3/32 or 7/64, number 21 or number 25. Hopefully I have a drill bit that size. Okay, the closest I have here for the small one is a 3/16 of an inch. I don't have metric screws, so I'll go ahead and set this up on the drill. Okay, for this next part I'm going to use this drill press because it does it perfectly vertical. It's hard to see kind of in the video, but there is the circle there, and then I could do a completely square hole with the drill press. And I used a little C-clamp here to hold the steering plate in place on the drill press. Alright, might get a little noisy. And just go ahead and make the drill. I'm not putting too much force on it. There we go. Alright, so I made the 3/16 drill hole, and it was right up here, and it looks like it worked out to be okay. These are the 4mm Allens. I put them on top, connected them, and here's a 10mm hex over here, and this is a 8mm hex that I used here to tighten down the bolts. And it looks like it might be slightly off, like maybe a millimeter off center or off to the side. Hopefully it'll still work, otherwise I have to buy a whole new steering plate. Okay, here's a brief look on the inside of the velomobile, and this is the front left side up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have to loosen this bolt and have that rod stick through further, another 25mm. So looking at the left side of the velomobile again, and this is the front facing towards the front. This right here is a 10mm. You're going to want to go ahead and put a 10mm there, hold on to it, and then go ahead and spin this to push the rod in. Right now just free spinning because I loosened the bolt on the inside, but you want to hold on to this with this 10 mil, spin it until it goes 25 millimeters inward. Alright, so I went ahead and put the steering column in, and I just need to attach it to the steering plate. Sorry, I need to attach the steering plate to the steering column. Add the washer there, put these rods back in, and as you can see from the bottom here, it still probably doesn't line up here. I probably need to move it in another half a centimeter. Okay, now that I've shortened it, I went ahead and put it inside the hole on the bottom, and then it's time to go ahead and put the bolts back on. And notice you could still move it left and right, and to make more adjustments you could go ahead and just tighten this or loosen it on the inside from that other bolt, and then go ahead and put the washers over the other two and then tighten them down. You're going to also need the pliers, because if you just start spinning it, it'll spin right here, so you got to hold on to this section with these pliers and tighten these 10 millimeter bolts back onto the steering plate. Okay, looking on the inside of the left side, this is the facing towards the front, is to the right, and you can see that the bolt's sticking out quite a bit further, and then I tightened it down a little bit. Okay, so now looking on the right side, this is back to stock. I'm not going to show all the exact same steps I did, but I'm going to go ahead and mark which side is front and go ahead and get that mod going for the front right side. So I put the left side back on, and if you take a look how little spacing there is right here on the right side of the tire between the frame and the tire, and you come over to here and you look, there's a lot more spacing here. That just means that I need to tighten the bar up front here to pull it a little bit further towards the front. So in order to bring the whole wheel forward, you're going to have to loosen this here, and then on the inside tighten the 10 mil to pull this whole steering plate a little bit forward. Okay, so I adjusted the right side and made the modifications, and now I have to check the toe-in using my homemade toe-in device right here, just with some wood and screws, and put tape on the end to not scratch the wheels. Okay, so I slid it underneath, and this is one side. I just put it up and touch the side of the rim and go over to the other side, and I'll go ahead and place something right there and mark it. So on the other side I went ahead and put the 2x4 here, and then I ended up just drawing a line down there. Then I'll just move it to the front, and it should be hopefully in front of the line just about 1 millimeter, and that'll show if it's 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters toe in. So I went ahead and lined it up with the front, and unfortunately it looks like the block here might be hard to see. It's a little wider, so it's like 1 millimeter toe out, so now I have to go adjust it. So if you look at the rod on the right here, on the right side of this velomobile, if you go ahead and tighten the rod, it's going to pull the wheel inward just a little bit, and therefore hopefully give me that little toe in I'm looking for. I did not make any adjustments to the other rods down here, so I'm not going to mess with those, and hopefully just by playing with this in the front I could go ahead and get a little toe in. Alright, so this right side's touching, and as you can see here, I have almost exactly the same. I'm going to say it's maybe 0.5 millimeter toe in on the front of the DFXL. So I'm just going to go with that because the manufacturer says they should be parallel or up to 2 millimeter toe in, and that's about maybe between 0.5 millimeter and 1 millimeter toe in. So for this even or 0.5 millimeter toe in, the bolt here on the right side and the bolt on the left side over here are 25.5 millimeters sticking out, and that is from here to the end. So just the threaded part shown is 25.5 millimeters if you're doing this yourself. Alright, let's go back and see how much this turns. So it looks like about 15 degrees that way, and let's see if I get my 15 the other way. Looks like only that direction. Maybe there's something interfering. But it looks like the other direction I'm going about only 12, 13 degrees, so I lost 2 degrees of turn with this modification. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe or let me know in the comments section below if you have any questions or comment. And as always, have a great day. Thank you.